Section 580. Deleted portion. Now, give us a moment. Robert is, as you know, highly creative. What most artists do not realize is that the self is the first creation. They do not think of themselves as products of their own creativity. Because of Robert's energy and creativity, he has always perfectly mirrored and even somewhat exaggerated the condition of the inner self, its activities and inner postures. In the past, this was done completely at an unconscious level, with no conscious knowledge. He took no responsibility for his image. Since childhood, he expected later life to make up for any privations suffered earlier. Books were to bring instant success. The taste of limited success whetted his appetite during your tour. On the other hand, he was afraid of it for the reasons given earlier, having to do with yourself. The slowdown was physically expressed, both as an expression of the slowdown on the company's part after the initial burst of activity, representing here disappointment and anger. This also represented a cautionary slowdown, however, to reassure you that he was not going to take over, overshadow you. Since you have worked so hard at your own art without any such recognition. Indeed, then here a compensation. He slowed down further in anger at the compensation, or what he felt to be its necessity. It also represented a slowdown in the activity from practice, in that he feels that if Tan were really interested in his book, he would keep better track of it. This was tied in with the felt slowdown of winter. He was also ashamed of himself for the reactions, and hence did not want to go out to be seen. There has been a slowdown of subsidiary psychic activity, dream recalled and out of bodies, which is partially cyclic. He does normally slow down in winter, which is perfectly all right, taken alone. He is very worried that you will not find success, recognition that is, or money of a large nature, and does not feel that he should if you do not. In a chaotic world of twist reasoning, he thinks his symptoms will take your mind off your own problems and relieve you to some extent. He is hurt when people do not buy your paintings of the walls, and angry at anyone who mentions liking a painting without offering to buy it. He is at his worst with you on the street because he does not want to show you up. The same applies when he is with you at home, with others present. Now, there is a connection here with mothers. Some of these, though she is not present, connected with your mother. If your mother thinks Robert is more successful than you, then obviously she can see that Robert is paying for it. The same applies to those in your apartment house. Much of this stems from the young psychologist's remark, as interpreted by Robert, that he was using psychic phenomena to dominate you. As things turned out, the psychic phenomena was a way to achieve success, and because he loves you, he will be sure it is not at your expense. No one will say that he is the most dominant or accuse him of this if he so obviously needs your assistance. walks behind you. This also means that you show your devotion more obviously, gallantly offering him assistance, thus always showing the world that what he is doing has your blessing. A side point here, but with some reference. His mother always told him that he would destroy those he loved, and he feared that any success of his might show you up if you had not achieved your own. Give us time. Actual continued success, on the other hand, would have been a definite experience that you could have met together, say, than another tool. He could have been reassured by your reactions. The slowdown, however, gave him ambiguous feelings. Less success on his part meant further time from your own painting, which you would resent, so that, in that respect, continued success at yours would be at the expense of your valued painting time. Now, give us time, and rest your fingers. I will leave our friend more or less the way he is for a few moments. Rob said, "All right." Rob noted. Jane sat quietly in trance, while I strayed a bit and raised my right hand. Then I told Seth I was ready to resume. Seth said, "Now, rest or a nap in the middle of the day is the most literal and yet symbolic interpretation of a slowdown. Here on awakening, he was confronted with the intuitive knowledge of what he had done, not only since the tour, but to varying degrees before it. For to carry the idea through, he would have to stop completely. You cannot try to go and stop at the same time, to be driven to achieve and not achieve, without some consequences. Earlier, he felt the stronger apathy that so frightened him, at the height or depth of the depression. That being partially proved at the time, if you recall. The idea of napping effectively brings it to mind in less severe form, so that a nap was not a creative refreshing time, but a cop-out. That is, to his way of thinking. Now, he felt that rebellious, representing his first book success, helped bring about your illness, and this feeling alone is responsible for much of this. Rob asked, "Did that book come out before I got sick?" Seth said, "It came out while you were becoming sick. Your mood was very poor, and he felt that you were angry and resentful at him because of its publication. You were not yet in the throes of your illness, and he felt that this represented the last straw to you, that it was not that good a book, not art as you thought your paintings to be, and yet it was published." Rob asked, "Did I feel that way?" Seth said, "You were angry and resentful. Part of this was a projection of other problems, however, rather than specifically your attitude toward the book. Your attitude, however, was very negative. It shocked, frightened him, and made him think that perhaps his success could separate you. He knew the book was not art also, and felt guilty. He felt that you were his accuser, and published him by becoming ill. Before that he felt that your negative feelings were largely directed against your parents,
At this point, he felt they were directed against him. He had put a great weight of trust and loyalty in you, and felt lost, insecure, and frightened. At that point, he felt completely alone. Those feelings have largely dissipated, so that the loyalty never withdrawn is still vital. This is all in the background of the difficulties. You started reading his dream book. He is again frightened as to whether or not it will meet with your approval. Ralph said, he knows that's no problem. Seth said, he worries and looks for reassurance in that area. Ralph asked, can I ask a question? Seth said, you may indeed. Ralph said, I have wondered about this before, whether we should look for another publisher for your book. Seth said, as things stand now, do not make any changes. Give them a chance at it and see what develops. Much can happen before that time comes. Ralph said, we have been very concerned about the advertising angle. Seth said, let what I have said stand for now. You may take a break or end the session as you prefer. Ralph said, I guess we'll end it then. Seth said, I hope I have been of help. Ralph said, very much so. Seth said, my fondest regards and a hearty good evening. Ralph said, thank you, Seth. It's been a pleasure. Seth said, it's always a pleasure from my end also. Seth said, one small note. This also has to do in our own private sessions, with Rupert's slowness and difficulty getting out of the chair, to show you that he is paying for the success of the sessions. Ralph said, yeah, but I don't expect him to pay for anything. Seth said, in class sessions, he does not feel this. You have always in the past spoken of discipline. He was afraid that you would resent his success in something that seemed too spontaneous. Ralph said, no, I don't. Seth said, and thank you for fixing my chair.